Morgan really feeling the yes kicks as she just tries to make it back to her corner.
Brutality. Welcome to the JM Report. I am IAmGoodOlJM, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And a bit of a slow week, but if you are Liv Morgan, it probably feels even slower than that. As many of you know, try that again. As many of you know, Brie Bella kicked Liv Morgan square in the face, not once, but twice this past week on Raw during a 6-women tag team match as the entire Ruby Riot Squad, or just the Riot Squad, Ruby Riot and Sarah Logan, and of course with Liv Morgan, took on the Bella twins of Brie and Nikki and Natalya. Now, many have defended Brie Bella, and she would even go on later on that same night to Twitter and to basically offer, I guess is the best way to describe it, some thoughts. She didn't flat out apologize, at least not in a public forum. If there was any apology, which I get into in a bit. Unfortunately, to many, in the eyes of many, that placed Brie Bella in a really, really bad spot where no one said, as far as I know, at least from all the tweets, comments, and blogs that I've seen all week about this topic, that at no point did Brie Bella offer or gave a public apology to Liv Morgan. And all she said was, matter of fact, I read it verbatim right here, her tweet: "Every match on Raw, it's an opportunity for us to entertain the fans. Our intentions as WWE superstars is to win the match, never injure our opponents. Thinking about at Ya Live only once tonight." Heart emoji, signed her initial B. Many thought that was a grade of the match, a negative B grade for the match. No, that's how Brie Bella signs off on her comments or tweets, if you will, in this case. I can understand. She didn't mention anything that we weren't already aware about, at least the mass majority of us. She does point out is to never injure our opponents, and accidents happen. And for the past few weeks, if anyone's been following, and I've made my comments well known here about Brie Bella matches as of late, since she has come back, similar to Maurice, who only given birth to their first child each, and 5-6 months later, give or take, they're back in the ring. At least on Maurice's case, it didn't look like it was going to be long-term anyway, as she, quote-unquote, retired again last week on SmackDown to return home to be a mom, which is fine. I mean, she only returned basically to further tell the story of the feud between Daniel Bryan and The Miz, and the addition to Brie Bella, of course, added to it. But unfortunately, the matches weren't all that great. Even their Hell in a Cell mixed tag team match a couple of weeks ago wasn't all that great. Didn't live up to expectations. And of course, before that, Brie Bella's double botches in one tag match on Raw, where she tries to go for a suicide dive, ironically against the Suicide Squad, the Riot Squad. No pun intended. A couple of weeks ago on Raw, and she goes for one side. I believe she was about to dive onto Sarah Logan, but in that particular spot, I do believe Sarah Logan was off just a little bit, but the fact that Brie Bella went for the move anyway, and they didn't try to give an indication like, hey, here comes the spot, make sure you're in position. So Brie, I'm going to assume, and I hate to do that, but I'm going to assume that Brie, in the heat of the moment, decided to hang herself between the ropes, in the middle rope, second rope to be specific. And that's when Sarah Logan decided to react and throw a couple of forearms. But it might have been the spot where Sarah counters the suicide dive into a forearm, and Brie Bella automatically would have hung herself on the second rope there. And then, of course, later on in the same match on the opposite side of the ring, near the entranceway, Brie Bella goes for another suicide dive onto Sarah and I believe it was Liv Morgan. But her feet get tangled up on the ropes, and she ends up landing a bit short. So that led many to believe that maybe Nikki Bella just has way too much ring rust and hasn't really dusted off. So what happened this past week on Monday Night Raw? Again, in a 6-women tag team match, Brie was doing her spot, well, her husband's spot, but the Brie kicks or the whatever it's called. She's doing her yes kicks to Liv Morgan in the middle of the ring. She delivers about 3 or 4, right where they're supposed to be, in the upper chest area, into the stomach. And Liv Morgan is there selling them as she should, as she was. And one kick, now, I went back several times to see the body language and what could have gone wrong exactly. Now, I'm no expert. I obviously haven't spent the years that many of these superstars have in the ring, but I do have ring experience. But it's a cup of coffee in comparison to, say, if I was, or my experience in the ring is a cup of coffee, and then the WWE is the Starbucks of all pro wrestling. So can't think of another better comparison. But from my instructors, thinking back, and this was many years ago, at least a good, a decade ago, if not more. And I'll maybe get to that story some other time, but from what I do remember is, if you're going to receive maneuvers like that from either a yes kicks or, for example, what Roman Reigns hasn't done in a while, but he'll place you in the corner and he will do those standing clotheslines to his opponent. Or even if you're getting kicked in the corner, or you're hung on a tree of woe and you're getting kicked in the stomach in the corner, you're taught to basically kick in the same spot, pulling back your kicks or your punches, whatever you're doing. And it takes 2, right? So your opponent would have to sell or give the impression that, hey, you're hurting me with your kicks, or you're really beating me up here. So playing it back in slow motion, I don't know how I've invested that much time, but I did a few hours, as a matter of fact, after the match happened, and even into the next morning. So after the 3rd or 4th kick to the midsection of Liv Morgan, that one might have been a little bit more stiffer than the previous ones that made her almost, keep in mind, Liv Morgan's already down on her knees, and she wasn't sitting on her heels yet. She was basically a little bit upright, but still on her knees. So on that last looking stiff kick, she ended up sitting down on her heels and slightly slump over forward. So that's when and where Brie kicked her in the face the first time. Now, again, I wasn't there. I'm just going on what I saw. What made Brie decide to kick her again, the second time in the face? I don't know. Maybe she was in, the momentum or the adrenaline, the roar of the crowd. Who knows? Or her state of mind. No one knows yet. Only Brie can answer that. So the second yes kick was stiff in the face, and immediately reacted, Brie did, to what she did as Liv Morgan collapses face down. And here's where Brie should not have touched Liv Morgan. And if anybody was paying attention in the back, would have given one. And I'm sure they did, but I don't believe it was fast enough. Where the referee should have stepped in immediately, he did not, to not allow Brie to move Morgan around the ring the way she did, to roll her over to get an attempted pin. And at this point, you got to believe Liv Morgan the lights are on and nobody's home kind of deal. She was on autopilot, as one of the reports described it. So Brie immediately realized what happened. The referee, I'm sure, was more advised or given the notification from backstage through his earpiece as to what happened. So he has to intervene. And eventually, but the spot between the pinfall attempt by Brie Bella and Liv Morgan didn't kick out. She just more popped up her shoulder. It was almost as if she was trying to do a sit-up while Brie Bella was laying on top of her. But her limbs, her legs especially, were all numb, almost lifeless, I should say. And you can almost hear the conversation. Brie's like, okay, I'm going to take it to your corner. And Morgan tried to make it look like as if she was going to bum rush Brie back to a corner, but she collapsed again. And maybe you picked up in the beginning of my show here, while the commentator is going on Raw, you can clearly hear Brie Bella tell the rest of the Riot Squad that she's out. Liv Morgan, she is out, and had a pretty much called an audible for the rest of the at least for that spot, and for whatever else they had planned for the rest of the match. Had to call a couple of audibles. And this brings the question, is Nikki Bella a danger in the ring or a danger to others? Well, it's always said, and I said that I wasn't going to defend Brie Bella because, and I should clarify that, I don't know her personally. Met her once at a New York Comic-Con a few years ago, along with her sister Nikki and Kelly. They were all at one table, and probably my only opportunity to meet the three at once on top of that. So I got my picture, my autographs from all three of them, and I went on my merry way. So it's really difficult to do so because I fall back on, okay, you kicked her in the face the first time, then a second. I just don't understand how she did not react after the first time. She clearly saw and felt what she did. I mean, I'm not saying go out there and prove my point of view wrong or prove me wrong by kicking someone in the face one time and then not have a reaction or an emotion and then kick that same person in again the second time. It's like, oh, okay, I see what Jane was talking about. No, I realize everyone is different in that manner. I realize it is a physical sport. It's a sport. And Brie described it as entertaining the fans. Yeah, so is boxing, and so is MMA. Another argument. I'm not going to go on a tirade here, but that's what I just don't understand. I'm not going to sit here and argue, with anyone, and say that she is dangerous, that she's a liability, or anything like that. I just don't understand how she didn't respond or react to Brie Bella after the first kick to the face to Liv Morgan, but only did when she realized she did it a second time, and that was the coup de grace, if you will. No offense to Finn Balor. Excuse me. And yeah, Liv Morgan, no word as far as Super Showdown that takes place next Saturday in Australia, which I'll also talk to in a little bit. But the original plan was for a match between all members of the Riot Squad, including Liv Morgan, to face the Bella Twins and Raw Women's Champion Ronda Rousey. And this was all, again, going by rumor, and I'll believe it when I see it, to set up the stage and the seeds, if you will, for a Nikki Bella Ronda Rousey square-off at Evolution. And a lot of that's supposed to take place between the Go Home show this coming Monday and, of course, at Super Showdown. Again, no word if there going to be any changes or if they're just going to tone it down to a regular tag match where it's just the Bella Twins taking on the two remaining members of the Riot Squad. And speaking of which, obviously, Ruby Riott and Sarah Logan were very upset. These three have bonded together. They've done a lot together. And if you follow them on social media, they do hang around a lot, and they do make time to spend with their families separately. But when they get together, man, it's like, wow, you just want to be part of that group where they're hanging out at the beach, or even at it's not like one of those arcade places. I was going to call it a Chuck E. Cheese. It's not Chuck E. Cheese. It's more like those arcade spots, and seem to dine well, and have a couple of hard days of work, and you deserve one of those working women's drink, if you know what I mean, and just kick back a little bit. Everyone on the roster, well, not everyone, a lot of people on the roster do that, and it's just cool to see that they do have good times outside the ring when they're not focusing or stressing themselves too much of what's going to happen in tonight's match, or how we're going to go about this angle and all that. Like, no, just kick back. It's your time. Just chill. So I could have sworn that, and it's funny that not many people point this out, I could have sworn after the little incident between Brie Bella and Liv Morgan, shortly after, Ruby Riott, I get tongue-tied trying to say these names sometimes, but Ruby Riott was tagged in and had Brie Bella on the apron, and eventually would knock her down, but Riott would deliver a forearm. Now, unless Brie Bella's been going to the session or the portion of class at the Performance Center where you're going to sell the hell out of a stiff move and pretend that your jaw was broken, I could have sworn, and because of the angle, the live angle, and there weren't any replays, it looked like Ruby Riott hit her with a stiff forearm. Later on, once again, Brie Bella was in the ring against Sarah Logan, but they take her back to her corner, and after Sarah tags in Ruby, Brie delivers a forearm to Ruby Riott on the apron, and the reaction, the expression on Ruby Riott's face was like, oh, can you believe this one? And just got in the ring and just, did her deal. And I guess they delivered each other stiff forearms, and Brie, I guess not thinking or assuming I didn't deserve to get a forearm from you like that, so I'm going to just give it right back to you. Here's your receipt. I'm just going to potato you in the corner. And they had to literally rush to the finish because Liv Morgan, again, was on autopilot, and the referee, this was done off camera, but you can see in the background where the referee was trying to call the attention of the ringside trainers. And from what I gathered, and a lot of reporters are putting out there that we didn't see on camera, that Liv Morgan had to be restrained physically by her tag team partners in the corner not to return to the ring. So they thought they did, and like, okay, she's not going to move, she's not going to get back. But during the triple suplex spot, you see Liv Morgan running back into the ring, and that may not have helped matters because, okay, she didn't fall on her head, but if anyone's taking a spot like a suplex or a choke slam, or just falling from anywhere from 4 feet and above, maybe 5 feet and above, your body scrambles, it like literally vibrates the rest of you from head to toe. And immediately Morgan rolls out to the ring, as the rest of the Riot Squad does, and again had to be physically restrained. So they go to commercial. They come back, and the announcers had to make mention that Morgan was sent to the back for evaluations after the stiff kicks. Well, they didn't say stiff kicks, but after the yes kicks from Brie Bella. So it just ended where Natalya didn't see a blind tag from Sarah Logan to Ruby Riott, places Logan into a sharpshooter, and from behind comes Ruby Riott and just takes her out for a 3 count. So essentially, the Riot Squad won a 2 versus 3, a 2-on-3 handicap match. So, according to Fightful.com, following the accidental knockout that occurred on Monday when Brie Bella kicked Liv Morgan a little too hard in the face, there is no sign of bad blood between the two. Brie took to social media shortly after to extend her well wishes, as she of all people, knows what it's like when an incidental concussion turns a career upside down. That referring to, of course, her husband, Daniel Bryan, who has since returned to the WWE. I mean, not that he left the company, but I'm saying back into an in-ring performer. Additionally, it is said that Liv Morgan was not supposed to return to the ring for the triple suplex spot, but did so because she was on, quote, autopilot, and currently is having a hard time remembering what happened. Sarah Logan and Ruby Riott had to physically restrain Morgan from re-entering the fray for her own well-being. While Morgan is said to harbor no ill will towards Bella, her Riot Squad teammates reportedly seemed unhappy as they are generally close to Liv Morgan behind the scenes. All in all, a very much scary situation, and it unfortunately seems that Brie Bella has been caught in the middle of quite a few of those hiccups in the recent weeks, as I mentioned, those suicide dive attempts. And the WWE has issued the following statement to PWInsider.com in regards to the conditions of Liv Morgan after being injured on Monday night during the 6-women tag team match. So WWE goes on to say, Liv Morgan has a concussion and is going through the proper protocol under the WWE's wellness program. And no word again mentioned, as I said earlier, about her participation at Super Showdown. So you have to be evaluated. Hopefully, there have been some updates to these wellness programs. As many remember, the CM Punk was a 2-hour long venting, if you will, on Colt Cabana. And he thought that the concussion tests were a joke. So assuming it's not the same people in charge, they might have switched it around or changed it up a little bit to be sure that you're not concussed and that you're able to return into the ring and continue on your duties. So I would imagine that if Liv Morgan is taken off the road, she's got to go through some therapy. Got to find out if her balance is okay, her equilibrium. I've never been concussed, so I wouldn't know, but I've always been advised by people who have and doctors who have treated concussion issues or CTE that moments after it happens, you shouldn't be sleeping, you shouldn't be eating. Just try to compose yourself. I hope that advice was given to Liv. I'm sure they're all professionals. I'm not saying they drop the ball all the time, but for those who are unaware. So again, it's unclear as to spend all this time on this one story alone, but then again, not much has happened other than that this week. And I got a few other reports here to share with you. But hopefully we'll get an update soon, as I'll check before the episode is over if any more updates. And for now, we'll just move on. Back on September 21st, the WWE applied to trademark several WCW-related titles. Now, before I go on with this, in case you're not aware or just don't know at all, and that's fine. I learned a long time ago about this, but when you register a trademark for yourself, for someone else, for your company, what have you, they do have expiration dates. They do. My understanding is, and even explained to me as a 5th grader, I still don't understand. You would have to renew if you want to keep it, obviously. However, your trademark, your catchphrases, what have you, they may have a value to someone else or to another company that might be interested. They beat us to it, so we'll just wait till their trademark or copyrights expire, and we'll just jump right into it and register for it or get it for ourselves. Well, in this case, WWE has applied for trademarks for old WCW-related titles such as Fall Brawl, Halloween Havoc, World Championship Wrestling, and WCW Monday Nitro. These are all owned by previously owned by WCW before WWE bought them out back in 2001. And since then, among other titles, they have registered for it just to keep them under WWE. And again, these do expire, and they also play a big role on their alleged award-winning WWE network, as these shows and many others are on demand under the WCW umbrella. Another interesting trademark that they registered for, WWE did, the New World Order, specifically the NWO logo. Now I know for sure this it's not the first time that they registered for the NWO or its logo or the term New World Order. But I'm just curious to know, and I guess no one's smart enough to reach out to Hulk Hogan, as he's been putting together a NWO Too Sweet reunion along with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall to take place, I believe it's late October, maybe October 28th, out in Clearwater, Florida. Clearwater, I think it's Orlando. Well, it's in Florida. I'm pretty sure it's Orlando because that's where his new retail store is located. Clearwater, I believe, is where he lives. But just curious to see how and if this would affect the NWO Too Sweet Tour reunion, because Hogan doesn't own it, as far as I could tell, and from what I'd be able to gather, especially if you're having the WWE register or apply for a trademark of the same name. And I'm sure it'll continue without any delays or setbacks. And if this is a one-off for now, and if successful enough, and if there would be to be a second NWO Too Sweet tour in say a year from now, I'm pretty sure Hogan and McMahon will have to come to some kind of terms and say, hey, listen, I want to use this. I've been using it before, but now since you own the trademark and the rights to it, I guess Vince will get some kind of royalties out of it, or at least give permission to use it and not have any money involved. WOW, or better known as Women of Wrestling, have issued a press release announcing that Shaw Guerrero, the daughter of late great Hall of Famer Eddie Guerrero, former NXT superstar, has signed with the promotion as a new ring announcer. And for those who haven't been following, Mrs. Aiden English, she's married to Aiden English, by the way. She's been on a bit of a campaign as of late on her social media, specifically Instagram, where she's trying to be the next Maxim cover girl. And she's asking fans for the votes. Not sure if voting is still going on, but as of this past week, she's been, after the announcement of the ring announcer promotion, I guess, or position, she was asking fans to go register, not register, but to vote for her at Maxim.com. And she looks great. I mean, she's obviously all grown up. Many of us got to first see her in the Eddie Guerrero Story DVD. And since then, little bits and clips were used throughout WWE programming around the time where Eddie Guerrero defeated Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship after No Way Out. And yeah, I mean, she's come a long way. Obviously, she tried to, she still is part of the business, but I was trying to say that she tried in the ring as Raquel Diaz in early NXT, and this is after the seasonal NXT where it was like more reality show based. Now it's obviously a third promotion within WWE, if you will, besides Raw and SmackDown, or even 205 Live. So it's their development program or their development side of things, and didn't really go as far as that. Raquel Diaz, that is, and just decided to walk away. And from the matches I was able to see from her, I thought she was pretty good. and I hope that she would make some kind of comeback, but at least be involved with the business some way. But what better way to be involved with an all women's promotion and to be the ring announcer? And there hasn't been an official start date for her, but there's going to be a clip of it somewhere online on her first day, and I'll be curious to see how she does as a ring announcer as well. She's very open-minded. She's very outgoing. She likes to talk to people. Very, very exciting. It's Shaw. Hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. And good things are to come, that's for sure. I'm really happy to hear about this next story, as PW Insider confirmed that Mia Yim, the former Jade of Impact Wrestling, has officially signed with WWE. And this will make the first person of the 2018 competition of the Mae Young Classic to sign with the company. And I don't know what happened last year. I mean, she was also part of the original Mae Young Classic tournament. I would assume that like many others at the time, even during the Cruiserweight Classic, many had previous dates booked that would have conflicted with WWE had they signed. And I mean, sure, the signee would have been nicely compensated for it, but what about the promotion that they would have competed with? They would have had to offer refunds if a specific person that the fans were looking forward to seeing is not going to make it. Those indie promotions would probably have an option to refund and not give any retro pay, if you will, from WWE out of it. So thankfully, nothing like that happened then. Nothing like that is happening here, as Mia Yim has been wrestling independently, mostly against men, if you've been following her as well. And she's not a big girl height-wise. I would say, 5'8", 5'9", but she's taking on guys bigger than her, and she's performed really well. And despite the outcome of the Mae Young Classic here, because I don't get into spoilers, but I think she'll do really well. She'll pose a great threat in the women's division, at least in the NXT side of things. And hopefully within a year, if not sooner, move up to the main roster and talk about shaking things up. I think it's been about that time. And hopefully post-Evolution, someone with a clear head and actually with a head on their shoulders, and bring up, like, listen, we really need to shake things up in the women's division. It's stale at best, and if they're not injured, like Liv Morgan now and Alexa Bliss, which I'll get into, and also Sasha Banks, it's really slowed things down a bit, unfortunately, leading into Evolution. And so far, only 3 matches were announced, but the third one came through a taping, but from NXT side of things. But you know what's going to happen. If all women's championships were going to be defended at Evolution, then it was no secret that Kairi Singh was going to defend her title against Shayna Baszler in the rematch, as she invoked her rematch clause. So, Mia Yim, congratulations. If you haven't already, reach out to her on a tweet and wish her good luck. And speaking of Alexa Bliss, she was pulled out of WWE's second season of Mixed Match Challenge due to an arm injury. It was reported by, Bliss was replaced by Ember Moon to team up with Braun Strowman until Bliss is able to return, if she's able to return at all. The replacement has worked well thus far in the Team Little Big, as Braun Strowman and Ember Moon scored a win over Natalya and Kevin Owens. And as far as the arm injury itself, it appears that Alexa Bliss has been experiencing numbness on her left arm, and this is not related to the Ronda Rousey armbar, and as many people speculated. It's just no specific word or details as to when, how, or where it happened. But she is clear to still remain in the WWE as far as non-wrestling or non-in-ring work. That's why we've been seeing her at ringside for Alicia Fox matches or Mickie James matches. And you notice she hasn't been getting physical. So better safe than sorry and not have Alexa Bliss further injure herself until things get cleared up and she's officially medically cleared to return to in-ring performing. A little bit of detail on the Shawn Michaels front. As I mentioned last week, that all signs appear to point to a comeback from the Heartbreak Kid. And we'll find out a little bit more this coming Monday night on Raw, as it is the go-home show for Super Showdown. And they've been plugging and pushing and drilling it down your head to the pit of your soul of The Undertaker and Triple H one last time, as more than likely this is going to main event the Super Showdown. And it hasn't happened yet. We've heard promos, and I'm already sick of it. They've had nearly 5-minute video packages of their careers and highlights and this and that. Everything we've heard for the past few weeks, every segment, everyone that's chimed in from DDP and Booker T and all these wrestlers that have faced Taker or Triple H at some point in time and giving their point of view who would win. Up to that point, I'll be fine. But too long promotions, too long of video packages. So far, with that said, no sign of a Shawn Michaels comeback. However, on WWE.com, or if you received one of those subscription emails from the network, or if you sign up for those surveys to receive emails from, or even just follow them on social media. I know I caught it on Instagram a few days ago, where the question was asked, who you think would win in a match between the Brothers of Destruction and D-Generation X? So are they getting a little bit ahead of themselves? I know it's one of those what-if scenarios, but if the belief is, or the rumor is to believe, that Shawn Michaels is coming back, the one guy who didn't want to come out of retirement, and he's had a good 8-year run of doing so. And I know a lot of you listening would say, well, it's a lot of money not to turn down. And I get that, and I can appreciate that. Hopefully, if this is the case, Michaels has come to terms with it and it's like, all right, it's going to go back on my word, because, yeah, it is too much money not to turn down, and it will benefit not only himself, but his entire family. So who can really hold any gripe against Shawn Michaels for saying yes, allegedly, or assuming that he will. But again, we'll definitely find out more this Monday night on Raw, as Shawn Michaels will be appearing for the go-home show for WWE Super Show Down, which will likely serve as a setup for his eventual return to the ring at WWE Crown Jewel, which has been heavily reported for quite some time now, as the Heartbreak Kid retired back in 2010 after he was defeated against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26. And according to WrestleVotes Twitter page, at WrestleVotes, who have been pretty good with these rumors as of late. So their percentage is, I'll say, about 85% or better when it comes to rumors, and whoever WrestleVotes are, whoever have inside scoops or their sources, if you will, within WWE, have been pretty good as of late. So they tweeted out, hearing that Shawn Michaels will indeed wrestle one more than just the upcoming Saudi Arabia tag bout, a one-on-one match with The Undertaker is planned, while some wanted to take place at Chase Field for the Rumble. I'm told the discussion is centered around Survivor Series in Los Angeles. Interesting. So going on this logic, or at least this post, I would assume that storyline-wise, Shawn got a little bit more than pissed from the comments that The Undertaker made a couple of weeks ago. Is it respect, or is it fear, or you being a coward? Fighting words, aren't they? But it's all about execution, folks. And Taker and Shawn obviously have been around for a very long time. And almost everything, depending on the angle that is, but the majority of everything that they've ever said or done is believable. So I'm convinced if the idea is to bring Shawn Michaels back for more than just one more match, and whatever it is exactly that triggers that, like the first step towards that comeback, whether it's a comment from the Taker or a reaction, or he's maybe defending himself because Taker was trying to, perform a choke slam or something like that. Whatever it is, and depending how the selling goes, I'll be convinced that Shawn not only is coming back, but that he still has it. And I pointed out the little detail, the physical shape that Shawn Michaels is in today versus the WrestleMania appearance in Dallas. And he's bulked up quite a bit. He's I would say as good a shape as he was in, what year was that? It was the In Your House match with Jeff Jarrett where he took the IC title off. And I'll say that's 96-ish, 95, 96. That was pretty much his best physical shape I've seen Shawn Michaels in before, unfortunately, his back injury that eventually took him out for about 4 years. But here we are. Whew. Don't do the math, folks, because if you're from my generation, you just remind yourself how old you are. And it was a really long time ago. And we'll come full circle. Obviously, this would draw ratings because it's been falling as a lot. I mean, you thought if you're paying attention or watch or even follow the numbers, if you thought from SummerSlam have been dropping since Hell in a Cell, leading into Hell in a Cell, they've been dropping more and more. And ratings don't matter because they're still getting paid. So they could be 500,000 people, which will be about 75% of the audience now that are watching. And they'll still get paid. I don't know how all that works, but their contracts, they have a lifespan and all these guarantees of salaries or money coming in or out or whatever between USA Network and WWE and eventually Fox next year. It's set in stone. And what would be WWE argument here be? So Fox, you're not going to pay us the $1 billion that we signed for the next 5 years, and we're not getting any of that because the ratings are low, then, well, we're going to sue you. Let that sink in for a second. It's kind of how it works, but that might have been a little bit harsh putting it that way. But let's move on, shall we? Joey Janela, who last we saw, most of us did, at the All In special, has posted an update on his recent injury. And unfortunately, it's not good news. Janela states that an MRI has revealed the extent of the injury in his knee, which includes a tear in the PCL and MCL, which will almost certainly require surgery, putting him out of action indefinitely. Janela has been really gaining some momentum the past recent months from his work in the ring for his spring break shows during WrestleMania weekend. And it really sucks. I've only been recently getting into Janela's work here. And again, recently watching him at the beginning of the month, really, for All In. I thought he performed extremely well. It happens. The body does go through a lot of beatings, a lot of punishment, and it just catches up to you. So I wish Joey Janela all the best. No word to when exactly the surgery will be scheduled, and no word how long he'll be out. You can expect many months, if not more, physical therapy and rehab. if it's any similarities to Triple H's first quad tear. This will be, I think it was 2001. Yes, because he missed out on the invasion angle after WrestleMania 17. That took him 8 months. And of course, he came back as he did. Tremendous ovation at Madison Square Garden. I thought it was one of the best ones I've heard in a long time at that point. And funny backstory: Triple H was hoping to come back as a heel because he left as a heel at the time, dropping the tag titles to Jericho and Benoit. And the audience said otherwise. Like, okay, you're a face, you're a baby face. We'll move on. But in the case of Joey Janela, may not be that short window, if that makes sense. We're talking two very sensitive and extreme surgical points in the body of the PCL and the MCL. That's very delicate, and if you have shaking hands, you shouldn't be a doctor. But get well soon, Joey Janela, and hope to see you back in the ring at 100%. Dave Meltzer, who was on Sunday night's main event on TSN, shared a bit of an update on the situation. Well, not the situation, but the status, I should say, of Brock Lesnar and his contract with the WWE. And pretty much says that the contract with the WWE is not, and he stresses that, it's not in a state of flux like the company would have us believe. As of late, Lesnar's future with the company has been incorporated into storylines to make it seem like he's one of those WWE superstars wanting to jump ship to the UFC for a bigger paycheck. However, Meltzer revealed that Lesnar has not signed anything concrete with the UFC, and despite the WWE making it seem like his Hell in a Cell cameo was a sudden decision, the plans were always in place for him to interfere at the event to set up the angle for the show in Saudi Arabia later in the year, that being Crown Jewel. For me, between Dave Meltzer and WrestleVolt, as I mentioned earlier, they obviously have sources inside WWE to be able to report these stories out. And at least on Dave Meltzer's part, he's been hit or miss, and I've said this before. Now, I don't have any legs to stand on as far as this particular story on Brock Lesnar. It could be true. It might not be. Point being that Brock Lesnar does have time left on his WWE contract. Now, what's interesting about this is he believes Lesnar has not signed anything with UFC, even though they have been promoting him. They are waiting for the conclusion or the results of the USADA drug testing, which is still ongoing to the end of the year, early January. And hell, it was recently announced when Daniel Cormier defeated Stipe Miocic to become the second double champion in the heavyweight and the light heavyweight division. And if you remember, for those who saw, Lesnar was immediately announced as the next opponent or challenger, even not having been in the octagon for, 5 years now? It's funny how that works. And that the promotion decides who will draw the money, not so much as far as who deserves it. So Stipe Miocic may not get his rematch anytime soon, even though he's owed one, if you go by rankings, as UFC does. But Lesnar, at that point, was already in the USADA testing pool for a few days. And as we've seen, at Hell in a Cell, the man has shrunk. But at least I'll give him this. At least he's sticking to his word that he's taking the USADA testing pool very seriously. whether it was a discussion with family or close allies. It's like, listen, if this is something you really want to do, you just do what they tell you, do what they ask of you, and you can avoid all this nonsense and do what you love to do. Get that money, because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. You get a sweet check. Win or lose, you'll get a sweet check. And I believe he does have a stipulation in his contract about the one he hasn't signed yet. But the previous one, I believe, had a clause in there where Lesnar gets a portion of the pay-per-view buy rates, the streaming services and all that. So he's good. Lesnar is. And if and when this match is ever announced, I'll definitely have my eyes glued to the screen, whether it's on my computer or my smart TV, whichever way I watch it. Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar is definitely a money-making fight, and I expect that announcement pretty soon. Matter of fact, I'll say maybe after or around the Royal Rumble time, just to give a date to look forward to. Not that UFC have anything to do with WWE's Royal Rumble, but as far as an announcement, around that time period, I believe, when we were here, the announcement being made for the fight. So even though Super Showdown is next Saturday, and I could cover the preview on the next episode of the JM Report, but I figured why not? Plus, this week has been really slow. Let me just do a real quick check to see if there's any stories have popped up since I'm doing my recording here. Well, as it turns out, no. At least nothing major, nothing groundbreaking news as of late. Just little things in comparison. DDP being the next guest on Up, Up, Down, Down, and Lita talking about how online reports or reporting is being toxic to the business. Well, things change. Time has changed. And you know what? On that front, I would say social media especially, I wouldn't call it toxic because that would be unfair. Because there are times when even wrestlers use that to their advantage. Not always good, but ironically, Lita being the one who's discussing this. But remember back a few years ago, Lita got caught up in this love triangle with Edge and Matt Hardy, unfortunately. And it was Matt himself who put it out there on a blog, and then eventually will make statements online of what happened with the situation. I'm not going to get into the whole thing here because that whole mess it was just a complete mess. But in long form, it did work out. Not for everyone, but it worked out as far as making money off of it. I'm kind of stuck in the middle on that, but business. And yeah, ironically, internet or talk about being toxic. Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't a fond experience for anyone involved, especially Lita, who was very hesitant in being involved to begin with, as far as putting all of it on television. This coming from Something to Wrestle, Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson. They did a episode dedicated to that situation a long time ago. And yeah, I would expect, and Bruce Pritchard just confirmed it, saying that, I'll just confirm it on that episode, saying that Lita was very uncomfortable and rather not have done it at all. But was talking to otherwise, even though Pritchard said, like, well, if you don't want to do it, we just won't do it, but we kind of prefer if you do it, kind of deal. So basically, you have no way out of this. So again, I just think it's ironic how that story first broke, and then here we are many years later. Lita believes that that's what's going on online as far as the business being affected by reports and rumors and giving away results and all that. I mean, it's not like exactly what Bischoff did during the Monday Night War, but again, it happens. Word's gonna get out regardless, and even if it's intentional or not. And I say count your blessing that something like this is not on local news. Like, oh, by the way, the result of this tournament that's being pre-taped for a streaming service later on in the year, this is who won. And I got to really give a lot of respect to many online who did not spoil the outcome, for example, of the Mae Young Classic, even though some have, but not as many as I thought from, say, the previous UK tournament or even the Cruiserweight Classic about a year ago. Not as many. And it was so bad that I couldn't log in without running into a spoiler. And though I'm careful nowadays, whether I just continue scrolling down or just skip whatever alerts I get from certain sites or apps, I just ignore them. But luckily that's toned down a little bit, but I do understand and appreciate Lita's point of view. And it's not like the old days where I believe I also shared this last week where when it came to the return of Brock Lesnar at Hell in a Cell, the old school fan in me, I prefer those kind of surprises. I prefer not to read into too much spoilers or better yet rumors that so-and-so is backstage or so-and-so is expected to appear at whatever pay-per-view is going on. And speaking of which, that actually reminded me, I was just listening to a YouTube video from Wrestle Talk in UK. And now, I wanted to get to the rundown of Super Showdown. So if you want to skip ahead maybe 2 minutes for that to avoid this potential spoiler. And I'm sticking to my guns as I'll believe it when I see it. But, okay, ready? Go. That part of the deal of the previous Saudi Arabian event for Greatest Royal Rumble, the Prince, I forget his name, but the Prince there requested specific names such as the Ultimate Warrior and Yokozuna. Obviously was not aware, somehow unaware that they passed away. So the second time go around for the Crown Jewel, it's like, okay, since they weren't available, obviously, how about the next best thing or the next big name is to have Hulk Hogan appear at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. That'll be very interesting. And the timing of, I mentioned earlier, the timing of the registering trademarks for the logo and name, the New World Order / NWO, as Hogan is doing the Too Sweet tour, which I think takes place around the same time. I'll have to double check that. Actually, no, my bad. There's about a week gap in between, as the tour, I believe, is on October 28th, and Crown Jewel is on November 2nd. So, no, they'll be fine. I'd like to welcome back those who skipped ahead a couple of minutes. But, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Wrestle Talk in the UK, they're not the source of the rumors, but they do report a lot, as I do here. But they don't say in too many words as I do. That I believe it when I see it. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that one. So let's get right into the rundown for Super Showdown next Saturday, October 6th at 5 a.m. Eastern Time, 2 a.m. Pacific. So if you're binging Friday night, come home late, yeah, tune in, WWE Network, Super Showdown Live. Why not? I will watch the on-demand version later on. There's no way I'm staying up, let alone waking up for a 5 a.m. show, because I'm sure, like many of you, when you watch something like a WWE Network or a boxing or UFC event, hell, even football this time of year, I like to crank up my home theater. So I'm not going to do that at 5 a.m. and piss off my neighbors or, anyone in my household. So I'm not, no. But anyway, in no particular order. And again, I believe Undertaker and Triple H will main event, as Taker will have his brother Kane, who's taken, I guess, the weekend off from performing mayor duties in Knoxville, while Triple H will have Shawn Michaels in his corner. So all this would not come to an end, but definitely be picking up momentum after this Monday night's appearance of Shawn Michaels, to the go-home show for Super Showdown. Well, Triple H have more losses against The Undertaker, as history has shown, especially in big events. He's lost 3 WrestleMania matches against The Undertaker. Of course, the last one being the end of an era, at least, I guess, the era being the Attitude Era. Not that it's lasted up to that point, but I believe it was, who was it that said, "We are the last of our kind"? And I thought that spoke volume, because it's very much true that they were both very active. They were active more back then than they are now, Triple H and The Undertaker. But the match itself was very brutal, very, very physical, very emotional at the end, especially. Breaking kayfabe, where kayfabe doesn't really exist anymore. But I thought that visual of all 3, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Undertaker, at the top of the rampway, they basically hugged it out they hugged it on the way out, and turned around and acknowledged the live crowd there. And they should have gone with that ending, but they needed a big time main event, assuming this will be the main event for their first ever live televised Australian show. And what WWE champion, what Universal champion? Hogwash. We're going with Triple H and The Undertaker. Give them a call and offer them X amount of money. They'll say yes. Because you don't want to disappoint your audience, I guess, at least the audience in Australia. I mean, here in the States, as entertaining it would be, but the storyline going into it, it's like, really, guys? I know I'm not the only one. So they're dubbing this one more time, or one last time, Triple H versus The Undertaker at Super Showdown, at least until the next one. Because if you're following what's going on social media-wise, there's this rumored setting up of the tag team match, DX and the Brothers of Destruction. But of course, again, we won't find out between Monday Night Raw's appearance of Shawn Michaels and the actual Super Showdown, where everything's going to literally get blown up. Not physically, but the story, the rumors, just, we'll know for sure that. In a 6-man tag team match, all members of the Shield, including Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, as they are the Intercontinental and the Universal Champion, respectively. I thought it was ridiculous of this past week's Monday Night Raw's angle, where their opponents in this 6-man tag match, Braun Strowman, Dolph Ziggler, and Drew McIntyre, who are also the Raw Tag Team Champions, were trying to lure Dean Ambrose away from the Shield, saying things like, you can't trust them, they'll backstab you, you're the only one of that group who isn't a champion, blah, blah, blah. Why would they do that? Well, they being creative, and let alone be on television. Why give any kind of assumption or indication that Dean's going to break away from the Shield then, knowing full well that he got this already advertised 6-man tag team match? Now, in all fairness, if they're going with that route where, if and when the Shield ever break up, it'll be Ambrose going heel. I think that's more preferred rather than rumored, that it will take place at Super Showdown. So then that will be the end of the angle with Strowman, Ziggler, and McIntyre with the rest of the Shield. So Ambrose will be the odd person now. So are they going to bring back Kurt Angle and put him back as another honorary member of the Shield again to move forward with that storyline? No. Bit of a not even a misleading. It was just ridiculous, and they wonder why their numbers are declining. WWE Champion AJ Styles will take on Samoa Joe, as this really picked up the pace in the storyline this past week on SmackDown, where there was supposed to be a contract signing, and we all, especially the past few years, we've all said that those things never end well. Boy, did this one not disappoint, but it was a very different kind of not ending well. So instead of the usual brawl breaking out, or someone running in, supporting the heel, or whomever the coordinator of the contract signing, in this case it was Paige, getting their licks in, because if Paige was the heel GM, then yeah, something like that could have happened. But I thought she'd do that between two men. But anyway, so AJ Styles cutting a promo. Samoa Joe's nowhere to be found, as he was announced, didn't come down. And Styles and Paige in the ring wondering what's going on. All of a sudden, the Titantron has Samoa Joe. I'm curious to see how they. I'm pretty sure it had to have been pre-taped, had to be, and I'll explain in a sec. But you see Samoa Joe up on the screen. So unless the Titantron now comes with Wi-Fi capability or some kind of physical connection, I don't know how Samoa Joe was able to get his live feed, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or whatever he was using, and have it connect to the Titantron and interact with AJ Styles. So, it's Samoa Joe, one of the best heels right now. He basically ends up showing outside of AJ Styles' house, quote unquote, as there was a mailbox conveniently set up with the last name Styles and a front lawn. And Samoa Joe was talking all this shite about his family being home and AJ was out of town. So Joe was in Georgia, allegedly, outside, Augusta, Georgia, where AJ Styles is from. SmackDown, where the hell were they this week? I can't remember, but they were at least 1,000 miles away, according to Samoa Joe. And Joe threatened to knock on the door and go inside because it was about dinner time. And while this is going on, Styles contemplating leaving the ring. Like, yeah, get a running start. You'll be there in no time, AJ. There's nothing he could do. So he had to restrain himself and pleading with Joe not to go in the house. So here's why I think I was pre-taped, the Samoa Joe part. Everything that AJ Styles was saying to Joe as far as don't do it, come on, man, you're going too far, leave my family out of this and this and that. Joe didn't really have a response to it. Joe never said, oh, you don't want me to go inside? Oh, you don't want me to knock on the door or anything like that? He just basically never responded to whatever AJ Styles was saying. And it was just, I guess, a rehearsal where, okay, so when Joe says this, you say that. And then let him talk for a little bit. And now, okay, so wait for this cue, and then you say this. But, there's a slim chance that it was a live interaction, and Joe being just Joe, being the a-hole, just ignoring whatever Styles was saying and to get his point across, to do whatever he wants to do. It just felt a little awkward. Why isn't Joe responding to what Styles is saying or even doing for this matter? But that's neither here nor there. But it did put for a great angle to add on to the storyline that's going on already between the two. And this will be a no DQ, no countout, must be a winner championship match at Super Show Down. So if everyone, and hopefully they continue with the momentum, if you thought the Hell in a Cell match was physical, now adding no DQ, no countout, I expect a lot more from Styles and Samoa Joe here. As I mentioned earlier, the 6-women tag team match as of now, and the eyes of the fans, that is in question. Chances are, I believe, it will be toned down to an ordinary tag team match. But as it stands right now, and it's still even being advertised on their website, WWE.com, the Bella Twins, Nikki and Brie, will team up with Ronda Rousey to take on all members of the Riot Squad. I believe it will be toned down. Bella Twins will take on Sarah Logan and Ruby Riott. And maybe they'll allow Ronda Rousey to defend her title against, Alicia Fox, maybe Mickie James, who knows. Anyone that has been announced thus far for this event, as this is a co-branded, quote-unquote, co-branded event between Raw and SmackDown. And speaking of the SmackDown Women's Championship, Becky Lynch will defend against Charlotte Flair as she invoked her rematch clause here post Hell in a Cell. And Becky's really living up to this Stone Cold Becky persona. I was going to call her Stone Cold Becky Austin, but I don't think that will work. But it was earlier in the day before SmackDown was on the air. that Charlotte was doing a photo shoot, and then this was all backstage. They made it sound like as if they were somewhere else, but no, this was all backstage. And Becky Lynch jumped up from behind, and the photographer, he kept taking pictures anyway, even before Becky Lynch was, oh, you want to take pictures? Here, take pictures. So as the beatdown's going on, the photographer kept taking pictures as he was supposed to anyway, to be posted online. And then Becky made the comment, oh, you want pictures? So she started posing with the belt over her head and with 1 foot on Charlotte Flair's beaten up body on the ground. And yeah, of course, multiple angles. I think about 3 different angles were taken of that same scenario, and all of that was posted online. So I don't think the photographer needed permission from Becky Lynch or anyone that was there to say, continue taking pictures of everything that's going on. I thought that was just hilarious. But yeah, you notice I'm not giving any predictions because it's in canon for sure, but it's not going to change much. I mean, yeah, they could surprise all of us with a title change at least, but I think way too much thought has been going into the Triple H Undertaker match that's taken away from the rest of the card, as much as that's being advertised as well. But all focus on Taker and Triple H as if they need that much more attention. But I don't know about this one. The rest of the card, that is. I expect it to be a good show. It's co-promoted. I think there will be at least one match where it's gonna be mixed up a little bit. Raw and SmackDown. Or am I wrong? No, they're not. Looking at the rest of the lineup, they're not. So let's move on here. As John Cena, someone else who apparently has slimmed down, but still in great shape, will make his return to the WWE ring, teaming up with Bobby Lashley to take on Kevin Owens and Elias. Originally, it was going to be Kevin Owens taking on John Cena and Bobby Lashley taking on Elias. So maybe somebody wrote it down on paper and realizing the time all of this will take up, let's just make it a tag team match. And plus, Cena, not that he's been away from the ring that long, but he's trying to get his feet wet in Hollywood. I'm sure many of us saw the recent trailer for Bumblebee, which looks amazing, by the way. I think they're finally doing it right. They're doing it justice, even though this movie will be in canon with the previous ones, unfortunately. But it is what it is. But John Cena has a role in that film as one of the military operatives. Speaking of which, I was very fortunate to catch the 32nd anniversary of the original animated The Transformers the movie. Thanks to Fathom Events, AMC Theaters, Hasbro, and Shout Factory, as they re-released the digital version where it was remastered digitally and surround sound, the whole 9 yards. And yeah, I was able to catch it just last night. Got a free movie poster out of it, so that's something. But definitely I was able to live a denied or a declined childhood moment from 1986. And I'm not going to say how old I was then because that'll give away how I am now. But thankfully was able to fulfill that possibility, as I can check that off my list, among other things. But I'm glad that they're doing that, not all the time, but on occasion when it comes to a specific anniversary for a popular movie, film, that they get re-released. And if for whatever reason didn't catch it on the big screen to have that experience, you have opportunities. And Fathom does a great job with that and corresponding with whichever distribution company of specific movies that can be re-released to the public. So that was my little tidbit from last night. And again, John Cena has a role in this movie. He's a bad guy. Believe it or not, John Cena is in the movie. But here, teaming up with Bobby Lashley, I think gives the excuse of Cena not spending too much time in the ring where an injury can occur. Now, Sure, the Rock did that for 3 years in a row, but they were mostly one-off matches, despite the other rare appearances if they won via satellite. And at that point, The Rock was already an established actor and more than likely is, and I believe this, the highest paid actor today in Hollywood. He's on very high demand, and you can kind of see why. So with Cena, understandable to avoid injury, as The Rock supposedly did at the end of WrestleMania 29, thus not able to appear the next night on Raw, injuring his ribs during his match with Cena, dropping the WWE title to him. And I was there live at MetLife Stadium. There weren't too many cheers for Cena that night, so I'll say that much. And I believe this is a good move. Again, switching it around. If you go back, it's not in the website anymore, but sometimes people are able to find these hidden pages on websites, and WWE is no exception, that Cena was originally supposed to take on Kevin Owens one-on-one, and that Elias was going to have a counsel like he always does, but Lashley was going to be his opponent eventually. And I guess good move. You want to protect Cena and still have enough for the other three to shine here. I think it's a great move. And, of course, I haven't heard too much of it, but then again, I've been watching a lot of Raw on mute because I just can't stand the commentary, especially from Cole and Graves, but it is what it is. But I haven't heard too much about this free agent John Cena. I'm sure that's already played out anyway. Daniel Bryan will take on The Miz, where the winner will receive a future WWE Championship opportunity. And interesting considering the parties involved. We've seen already Styles and Bryan have a match on SmackDown, which I thought was phenomenal, no pun intended, as I believe that was that was Paige's first night as general manager, and she made that match on the spot. Daniel Bryan against Samoa Joe, going back to the old indie days, that'll be great as well. Miz, who has been getting better as time goes on, we wouldn't really see a heel match. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. Miz and Samoa Joe, that would not make sense whatsoever. But either outcome of this match to take on the champion, if not at Crown Jewel or maybe Survivor Series, but they're never too specific as to when these future opportunities will take place. But more than likely, it'll probably be an episode of SmackDown. But considering how things have been going, and now that the wives are no longer an issue or a part of the story, Bryan is owed a victory, and what better place than do it than Australia? But again, these special events now are canon. Not so much Greatest Royal Rumble, because who's been bragging about Braun Strowman's win after a 50-man Royal Rumble? I mean, I think I've said it before last time as well. That trophy and the championship belt of the Greatest Royal Rumble stayed in Saudi Arabia, so no point in celebrating if you have nothing to celebrate with. SmackDown Tag Team Championships on the line as the New Day will take on The Bar after Rusev Day has failed and buckled. And The Bar, who's finally been back on television the past few weeks, looking pretty good. I gotta share this story as it was on their Instagram pages. Rusev and Sheamus were hanging out at Rusev's home, and it was reported that Rusev wanted to find something to watch on TV, or he found something specific to watch, and Sheamus let out that, I'm not watching that damn Total Diva show. It's trash or sucks, something to that degree. So now Rusev and Lana are taking a little mini vacations, as many of them do so many times during the year. But Sheamus is house sitting Rusev's home, and I don't know who it was that did it, but somehow Sheamus ended up being tied up to an office chair, duct taped and gagged, all that. He's facing the TV, and Total Divas is showing. So I'm sure there's an inside joke there, and kind of clearing up the airways that Sheamus, I don't think he was saying that he wasn't a fan of Total Divas, but just it's like basically it's okay to take jabs at your own people doing other things. I don't think Becky Lynch is part of the cast this season. I know I stopped watching a long time ago. I did watch last season. That's only because Nia Jax was on it. I know she's on it. She's on it this season again, but I don't know. It's just way too scripted. It's ridiculous, unrealistic drama that they make it too dramatic, if that makes sense. It's bad. Sorry, but it's bad. Sorry, not sorry. That Total Divas has become this. The first season was I believe a pretty good one, and since then it's just going down this slope, and it's just overscripted. It's overscripted, and the final results is what we end up seeing, and I just rather not watch it anymore. Asuka and Naomi team up to take on the Iconics in a women's tag team match. Nothing on the line here other than just the Iconics being the Iconics, and they've been pissing off Naomi and Asuka past few weeks on SmackDown. And finally, Cruiserweight Champion Cedric Alexander will defend against Buddy Murphy. This will more than likely be the opening match. No word of a kickoff show. I mean, there'll be a kickoff show, but I should have said there's no match scheduled for the kickoff show itself. But this is your Super Showdown preview and match lineup. And other than the Triple H and Undertaker match and the curiosity to see what becomes of the Bella Twins and Riot Squad match, what's going to happen with Ronda Rousey, will she get a title defense here? And if she does, it'll probably be a very short match to see how John Cena performs. And actually there's two matches I'm very invested in. That will being the two SmackDown matches of AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, and Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. So time will tell if there are any changes between now and the next episode of the JM Report that goes up a week from today, God willing. Of course, I'll bring it to you. But as right now, this is your Super Showdown lineup. All roads lead to Crown Jewel. And no mention of Survivor Series, which is interesting. But they got these three events coming up. Super Showdown, Evolution, Crown Jewel, all within a matter of a month. And, of course, a couple of weeks later after that, after Crown Jewel, is Survivor Series. And, oh, man, they've been really, really busy. But then again, this is something that a lot of fans have been cramming for. It's like, well, if you're the WWE and one of the initials stand for world, shouldn't you be doing these kinds of tours? They do, but unfortunately, the majority of the shows that are on tour, they're not televised. And even the ones that are not from around the world, like Starrcade of last year, where they brought it back, they resurrected the Starrcade name and event that took place in it wasn't Charlotte, North Carolina. It was in the Carolinas, and many questioned why wasn't this televised on at least the network, or if at best have it to be a video distribution. None of that happened. So a lot of us had to wait for the results to come in one at a time online. And I don't remember them having any kind of video packages a week later during Raw or SmackDown or NXT or anything like that, which I thought was a complete shame and no excuse for it. And I would assume that there was enough backlash from that and gave the impression to at least the ones that run WWE Network and suggested, hey, we got this much backlash and people were expecting it, or at least hoping for this to be at least streamed on demand, if not live, which I think could still be an option. I mean, there were cameras there. But any further or future events like this should be televised. I say, yeah, that's the whole point of you having a streaming service like this. You have live capability, meaning you can produce live events in your streaming service when it's not on demand or when it's not running on a 24/7 loop of out of order, pay-per-views or special events or whatever else is in your library. If you announce it ahead of time, with plenty of time, for a day and a time, people will tune in. I mean, I wish I can be in someone's ear and say, yeah, if no one hasn't already, this is the kind of things you need to be producing on the network. If you are this alleged award-winning, and we still don't know exactly what award was won for this network. If anyone knows, let me know. Post in the comments below. And speaking of network, why did they stop producing WrestleMania Rewind? I kind of miss those. I love those, and for the life of me, I can't find the Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior version of WrestleMania Rewind. I think, among other projects that same week when he passed away, I think they rushed that particular piece to the network, and it stuck around. I actually loved that particular episode because, like a few others on the same category, you hear from both sides of the story. And other reasons, either because unfortunately one side of the story has passed away or at the time just weren't on good terms with the WWE. But I prefer those two sides of the story, and you hear from both sides. In this case, the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. And though in many occasions they were singing different tunes versus previous video releases, where there was the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, which is a rare find. I have my copy, so if you don't have one, it's one of those rare findings. Which Hulk Hogan video was that? Was it Hulk Rules? Hulk Still Rules? But it was one of the videos he did shortly after his 2002 return, and there was also the oh my God, there was one recent one. It wasn't specific for the Warrior, although Hogan did have a sit down and shared his thoughts and memories of the Ultimate Warrior after he passed. But my point being, that particular WrestleMania Rewind of WrestleMania 6 between Hogan and the Warrior, completely different dialogue from previous video releases. And if that doesn't say or give the impression that, yeah, WWE does like to erase history from their own archives, I don't know what else does. But the fact that they deny it is a real pain in the ass. It's not a big deal now, but when it occurs and fans like myself pick up on those little details, like, wait, that's not what you said last time. Or that's not what you tried to shove down our throat the previous moment. But just, what exactly do you lose here? I mean, I know there's not, I'm sure, 100%, not everything that was ever shared on these documentaries or autobiography videos, either the truth, not all of the truth has ever been shared, or they give half-assed truths. And I expect that. And you can always use different words to say the same story. That's fine. But don't go, and I know it's difficult and times have changed and people change and directions and approaching changes. That's fine. But don't go around a couple of years later and you're going to retell the same story and not acknowledge, like, oh, well, at one point in time I said this, but, I've changed my tune since then. People still complaining about how WWE is now treasuring the Ultimate Warrior after years and years of taking each other to court, suing each other for, let's face it, like nonsense, really. And the rants that the Warrior will go on his YouTube channel, which is still out there, and they're pretty outrageous. And even Jim Johnston, the former WWE music composer, he was invited to be part of the All In weekend Q&A session, and even then, it's on YouTube. Matter of fact, describing the Ultimate Warrior as like, yeah, he was a little a little crazy, but he shared his experience with the Warrior. But maybe this what Lita was referencing to, that online or the internet, social media can be toxic to the business, and it sucks. At the end of the day, these are all public figures, and it's almost, even that has changed, I believe, that there are expectations. There was a fan a week ago that shared their experience about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins being complete dicks because they wouldn't acknowledge the fan or sign autographs or take pictures. And I have not many, but I've had some experiences like that where I run into a superstar. Actually, in the past couple of years at my local gym, I ran into Big E. I ran into EC3 before he was back in WWE. And my approach, at least, knock on wood, my approach has always worked, where I would calmly and politely walk up to them and say, "Excuse me." And of course, I won't ask who they are. I know who they are, and I'll acknowledge them by that name. For example, the Big E encounter. "Excuse me, Big E, how you doing?" And he just got to the gym. I'll say maybe 3-4 minutes before that, because he walked by one of the machines I was using, and he was on the opposite side of the room, and he didn't start yet. So I asked him, "Excuse me, Big E, how you doing? I don't mean to disturb you, and I don't want to bother you, but I was wondering if I could take a picture with you." And with a smile on his face, he's like, "Yeah, man, no problem." So posted a selfie. I didn't have the best cell phone camera at the time, but but no, he posed, smiling, arm over my shoulder, and I thanked him, shook his hand, and went on my way. Did the same thing with EC3, and the only difference was he was already at the gym when I got there, so he was in between machines, and I noticed, and I was so starstruck that I couldn't believe it. So I had to go on my phone and see, like, wait a minute, let me look at a recent picture of EC3, because his hair was a little bit longer than it is now, all curled up, and I said, "Oh my God, yeah, it is him." So as he was toweling off, I approached him again, politely, slowly. I didn't just walk up to him like I had a business or a beef with him. I extended my hand. "Excuse me, EC3? And he said, "Yeah. Oh, how are you doing? Nice to meet you. I'm a JM. I'm going to say JM. Nice to meet you. I'm a big fan." And, again, I don't mean to bother you, but I was wondering if you were able to take a picture with me. And same experience with Adam Rose. Shortly before he was released by WWE, or around the time, actually, a couple of years ago, more than that, actually. So, point being, you don't have to take my approach, but it helps. And at the end of the day, and let's be completely honest, they don't have to. Like, okay, at a gym is one place. Maybe outside in public, and they're not with their children, maybe, or they're not with their spouse. And even catching them when they're by themselves, I understand from their point of view, their being the superstar's point of view, can be a little bit scary, or maybe even a little shady, because you don't know who's approaching you, but yet you are this public figure, and that's where the expectations come from. I know in New York City, a lot of celebrities, a lot of actors, they walk around like ordinary people who aren't actors, and they blend in because they hide. They wear hoodies, sunglasses, baseball caps. Some are smart enough to recognize them, but they more stalked them rather than just approach them and say, "Oh, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you." Who was out there recently? Jonah Hill running into Leo DiCaprio. Actually, it was kind of funny, and I think TMZ caught this, where you see from across the street Jonah Hill just on his cell phone, and apparently was waiting for Leo, and then all of a sudden you see this figure off to the side who was kind of power walking towards Jonah, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, and said something because the person recording was across the street, and it startled Jonah Hill. And then the person kept on talking, and then I guess Jonah got a good look at the person and realized it was Leo DiCaprio in disguise, thinking that I was a fan who was approaching Jonah Hill and maybe wanted to do some harm to him. But, in that aspect, I can understand that. And I mentioned this before, a long time ago here on the JM Report, that Sasha Banks was concerned or in fear of her own safety going through airports, because there are those stalkers out there that will go as far as they did in this case with Sasha Banks, to call up the airport, pretend that they're related or they know Sasha Banks or refer to her real name, and wanted to find information about her flight coming in, coming out. It was ridiculous. And sure enough, said people will be at baggage claim waiting for Sasha to show up. And that's scary. That is something I would never do. I'm a fan. I would do everything in my power to meet so-and-so if it's advertised ahead of time. Of course, not everything is free. And but when it comes to these public interactions, whatever experience the fan had with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, maybe not. But the point I was trying to get to before, at the end of the day, as much as public figures as they are, and not just talking about the pro wrestlers at this point, they don't have to. They really don't. They have a right to decline. Hey, can I take a picture of you? No, sorry, man, not right now. And I've had that done to me. That's fine. And the rare comparison, the rare ratio to other positive experiences, you know what? And that's fine. And it's like, okay. One experience, and I won't even mention the wrestler's name because I thought it was a douchey move to do. But I'm asking for just a picture. Usually I'll get autographs, but I had nothing for the guy to sign. So he says, "I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to." Whatever the hell that meant, I don't know. But later on in the same venue with other fans while an actual wrestling event was going on, he was off to the side taking pictures with a bunch of other people after the fact. So I was like, all right, so much for not supposing to, not allowed to, or whatever the hell he said. But there he is. And those same pictures were posted online shortly after. So, you know what? Yeah, well, I realize it's an audio show, but I'm flipping him the bird. In that case, yeah, I would have said that, yeah, I had at least one bad experience, but not to a point where I'm putting it out there on social media as I kind of did here, but it's an isolated incident, and this guy, he's doing well right now. He's a current member of the roster, but he may or may not make it to the main event spot. Who knows? But he can. He has the ability to do so, and have a lot of people behind him to get there. But just brush it off. I'm over it. I only got a little bit excited there because it just reminded me. It took me back there to like, oh man, this SOB says one thing and he goes back on his word and pretty much told me to go myself. And well, between what Lita said earlier, or had to share a story with in an earlier report, the 2/3 of the Shield experience. Again, they don't owe you anything. Sure, you buy their merchandise. Sure, you buy their videos, action figures, like I do. Anyone that knows me personally knows what kind of collection I have, and it's still growing. But I at least try to do it what I think is the right way. And if I don't run into them in public, I give them the proper respect and proper approach. I try not to be one of these boy band fans that just go completely apeshit and just, want to tear a piece of their hair out and display it somewhere in some kind of ritual setup at home where their dresses should be, or have these clay-made dolls of them dressed up in their clothing. And no, it's just ridiculous. Again, having the very little experience I've had in the ring, just not even close to breaking down the walls, I guess. Try to come up with another euphemism, but no, I won't be able to tie up any of their wrestling boots because I haven't gone through their experience like many of them have. Like, talking about today's roster, no way. I honestly wouldn't know how to react or see how I would carry myself if someone were to basically rush me asking for a picture or an autograph out of the blue and it catches me off guard. I wouldn't know how to react, to be completely honest. So in this case, chill, and you see someone from a distance that you recognize and obviously you're a fan, approach them. But calmly and respectfully, non-threatening like, if that's possible, and see what happens. You'll probably end up being surprised of their reaction. And if they say no, it probably will be respectful. Or on the other hand, you don't know what they've gone through up to that point during the day, and they're just not having it, and just rather not hear it. And just like, okay, no problem. And again, I've had that before. At first, I'll share this one more story, and then I'll call it for the day. The Natural Butch Reed, a couple of years ago in New York, he was at one of the Marriott hotels in New York, and he was at the bar. He was talking with one individual who might have been one of his agents or handlers. I'm not sure. I never got to find out. But he was left alone for a moment, and I approached him. "Excuse me, Mr. Reed, how you doing? It's nice to meet you. Do you mind if I get a picture with you?" Now, he didn't say flat out no. Basically says, "Not right now. Just want to order my drink." And I might have shared the story already here, but I'll give the shorter version. And I said, okay, no problem. And only because he said not right now, I assumed that give him a minute, he'll get his drink and he'll enjoy it. And then it's like, okay, where were we? So again, whoever the other person he was talking to never came back. But Butch Reed was just sitting there, and I sat right next to him, the stool right next to him. I just sat myself down. Normally I would ask if it's okay, but thinking that he would have said yes, hoping that he would have said yes, and yeah, I was already in that motion to sit down next to him. So I out of nowhere, I just started speaking, like, Mr. Reed, just want to say thank you for everything you've done, and you're such a great fan. I'm such a great fan of yours all the way back to '87 with your match with Coco Beware at WrestleMania 3, and I'm glad that you and many others still do these appearances to remind us of a time where great legends like you are still around and want to get back to the fans. I might have paraphrased the majority of that, but that's what I was basically saying to the man. And as God is witness, he's looked at me dead in the eye and slowly started to smile, reached out, shook my hand, said thank you. And he goes, "How about that selfie?" I was like, "Really?" He was like, yeah. And it's on my personal Facebook page, but I'm trying to basically not transfer, but basically re-upload them on my IAmGoodOlJM Facebook page. You can just search for me, IAmGoodOlJM, on Facebook, and I do put up some of the reports I talk about here and others that break news on the spot. Also, minor film critic, for those who are wondering. But there is a way to interact with these pro wrestlers outside the ring, outside the arena. But try to keep in mind that there's a chance, a good chance, slim chance, but there's a chance that they're going to say no. And hopefully you will be mature enough to accept that response and just try some other time. or like I'm going to do in a few weeks, going back to New York, where I'll be meeting and greeting a lot more of the pro wrestlers that I have yet to meet. Some of them being from Big Cass to James Ellsworth, Eve Torres, Pentagon and Phoenix, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, the Briscoes, just to name a few, because a lot of names were dropped. And since I'm not being sponsored by them, I'm just not going to mention the name of the event right now. But I will share my experience when it happens. My voice is cracking up a lot today. I guess having a dry throat here. Hold on. Hopefully that works. No, it didn't. But definitely share my experience with that. I'll probably have a earlier in the week episode of the JM Report, because this will be early November when the event takes place, and I'll be out of the state for a while. But rest assured that I will have an episode of the JM Report that week, and I'll keep up to date. So until then, thank you for listening, not only to the reports, but also my few personal stories that I've shared here today. I really appreciate you listening up to this point. If you like what you heard, you know what to do with that thumbs up right down beneath the screen there. Leave a comment and follow me throughout social media as it's listed in the description. And look forward to this coming week of all roads leading to Super Showdown. Also pretty soon coming up, hopefully within a week or so, if not sooner, have another special announcement. It's related to a previous story I shared weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago. But I'll have an update. Don't want to get too ahead of myself right now. But right after I'm done here, I'll get back to work on it and hopefully have some good news about it. So until next time, it's good old Jenny M. Thank you for listening on the JM Report. Everyone be well, enjoy your weekend, and everyone take care and be safe.